The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning, everybody. As you can see, we're just starting the show like right in the middle here today. We've got two amazing guests today, two powerhouse women. I'm Shannon Penrod. This is Autism Live. We've been away for a while and we haven't been doing many shows. And we had a show that's planned for you, but we also had something that was coming up that we just had to promote. So we're taking jargon of the day out, and look who I've got here on the show with us. Sarah Bradford, aka SJ Childs, is with us. This amazing woman. I always say to people that this journey for me, when my son was diagnosed with autism, it meant that I went down a separate path, and the people that I have met as a result have been so epic and life-changing. And certainly both of the women that are featured on the show today, I think, fit into that category. But Sarah, my goodness, you have just shocked and amazed and inspired me for so many years. We had, for those of you who know, Sarah, also known as SJ Childs, is an amazing author, children's book author, and that's how I met her. She was writing amazing children's books, and then she decided she was going to be a podcast mogul. And that's really what she is. She has created an amazing network of podcasts and has been doing the 1 in 31 Autism Summit. How many years did you tell me that this one is that you're doing this weekend?
This summit is the 7th summit.
That's amazing.
I know. It's been 2 a year, basically.
Well, absolutely amazing. And that's why we had to have her on, because it's this weekend. This weekend on Sunday, she is having the most recent 1 in 31 summit. So I am in awe of you. I don't know how you have the energy that you have. Maybe you want to take a minute and tell people, maybe if they're watching for the first time and don't know you, where to find you, who you are, like a little bit of whatever you want to share about your story.
Well, absolutely. And thank you so much. You're such an amazing supporter. You are like one of my very first mentors on this journey, Shannon, and I'll always look up to you. You helped me just like become who I am today on this journey. You really were one of the building blocks. Don't get emotional. So I'm Sarah Bradford. I am a mother and a wife, and my whole family is diagnosed autistic. That's given us an amazing perspective to help show and teach the world, help learn from our community, how we can better share that information and get perspectives to those families, teachers, employers, service providers that really need that information, emergency responders. And so I built this community, SJ Childs. You can go to the website sjchilds.org to see the many different facets of things that we do with the children's books, the podcast, and like Shannon said, the summit that is going to be coming up. But yeah, it's been an amazing journey, and I am the most recently diagnosed in our family. And so this journey for me as a late diagnosed woman and mother has been just so special. It's really helped me to look at life differently. Of course, my childhood, look at all of those things, but how to see my children differently and how to kind of give them a different type of grace, I suppose. And I just posted something yesterday when, Facebook gives you those now and later kind of memories. And it was a picture of my son going into preschool when he was still non-speaking mostly. And then a picture of him today at Special Olympics golf with his amazing golf swing. And just to think of how far he's come and this community that has helped get me there. And so any information you want to find, if you want to go follow me on all of the socials, go to my website, sjchilds.org. if you just Google SJ Childs, you'll find all of my podcasts on other channels, on Autism-live, and with just so many amazing people. This journey has been, like you said, epic. It's like I've met the most epic people of my life.
Well, and it was really great this morning that you got an opportunity to meet our guest that's going to be on later on in the show. And I sort of felt like it was kismet that we needed this moment to happen for the two of you to meet. So I'm loving that. For those of you who are sticking with us, Soo Cho is going to be with us in a little while. And if you've watched the show since its inception, she's one of our oldest, dearest friends here at the show. We used to do Soo Cho Go with her because she does amazing yoga with kids on the spectrum, but she's really an expert in functional communication, augmentative and assistive technology, and finding the right mode of communication for each individual. So that's coming up later. But right now, Sarah, we really want to know from you, this Sunday is Autism Summit 2025.
Yes.
And how do people connect? You've got so many panels with so many experts. Is it like 6 panels, 7? You've got so many panels. How many panels do you have?
So there'll be 7 panels. Here, I'll just quickly go down the list for you. And this is all mountain time because I am in Salt Lake City, Utah. So everybody has to figure out their own time zones. But our research panel going over autism research will be at 10 a.m. Our family and community supports panel, 11 a.m. Neurodiversity and education part 1 will be at 12 p.m. We'll take a lunch and networking break where you can go to all of my different channels and find posts that the panelists will be participating in, kind of like a networking where you can meet them through those posts. We're going to be doing Advocate Stories panel at 2 p.m. and a Family, Community, and Supports Part 2 at 3 p.m. AI and Innovation, I'm very excited about that one, will be at 4 p.m. and Neurodiversity and Education Part 2 at 5 p.m. The reason I had to do so many is because I have a really hard time saying no to my wonderful speakers. And in the last few summits, our speaker sign up has filled up within 24 to 48 hours. And it's just been like 40 speakers overnight that we have signed up. And so I want to, of course, include as many people as possible. And so I'm really honored that this year I have a special guest host that will be coming on, Dr. Eric Endlet, and he'll be my guest host, like I said. So we'll officially have 31 for our 1 in 31 Connection Autism Summit. So I'm really excited about that.
There's some synergy there because it's your 7th one and you've got 7 panels. And it's the 1 in 31 and you've got 31 speakers. You're
on the 31st. I know.
On the 31st. I didn't think of that either. You really got the whole numerology of this figured out. And I don't know. I don't think it was deliberate, but it's very special.
Right? Yeah. So it's great. And the professionals and advocates that are going to be and experts on these panels are life-changing speakers. They will give you perspectives and ideas and resources that will help you, help all of these people. And we have a wonderful sign up right now. 150 people were signed up in the first 24 hours of the last one. So I'm excited to just see all of the growth and people go and sign up, and it is all for free. Let me just say that. I don't know if we said that at the beginning. This is a free summit. It will be streamed on StreamYard. So if you go to the website to register, you will register on StreamYard, but it will be streamed on my channels, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. And luckily, YouTube keeps it. And so it'll always be under my live tab, and you'll be able to go and see any of the panels or speakers if you're not able to make the summit.
That's amazing. And so, but you should register. Registering is like the best way to handle this, correct?
Because then you can get information for the next summits. You'll get special thank you, all those things, and you can get in touch with me. And so I think that yeah, if you'd love, I would love for you to register. That would make everything. And then we can kind of have an idea of who we're serving. What does our audience look like? Where do we need to reach out more? Like, where are the people who aren't we getting? I think that's the big thing that we all want to know is, where do we find the people that aren't getting the information, and how do we get it to them? So
absolutely,
that's my next mission.
And when you think about this, who is like the ideal person that you're hoping gets to show? And that might be 5 different people, but
it really is. Just because there's so many different panel topics, we have the self-advocates, of course, the parents who will get so much out of the family and community supports, the parents get a lot from the advocate stories. It's so inspiring to hear advocates tell their stories, especially when they start off as non-speakers and then they go to get PhDs and all of these other amazing skills. And that's not the story. I love this was, I just released a podcast yesterday, Dr. Kristen Williamson, and she's actually going to be on the Family and Community Supports Part 1 panel. The title of her podcast, which I love, AI came up with it, I won't take credit for it, was Your Autism is Not My Autism. I love that. I just think it is so appropriate. And so I think that advocates can really learn a lot from hearing other people's stories. Of course, educators, there's going to be so much information about education and how to help students, how to help your child if they are a student, how to help your adult if they're transitioning into higher education. We have plenty of talks about that. And then the AI and innovation, really amazing people on the panel that, there's so many, I feel bad not calling them all out, but Derek Krager has created something called AI for Autistics and Practical AI. And he'll be talking about that and how he helps serve the autistic community. We also have an amazing kind of a AI data program called Understanding Zoe. And Letitia Andrak, who's from Australia, will be coming and talking to us about that and about understanding Zoe and how she's created this platform to hold data to then be able to share with providers, doctors, teachers. And so this amazing system that she's created. And then I love this. You're going to love this, Shannon. I'm having Liam Murphy, who is the new director of TACT. Danny Combs was the director of that before, and he will be talking about trades. Now I can't think of what it's called. Teaching autistics community trades, maybe that's what it's called. An amazing company out of Colorado who is just, like you said, they're moving mountains too, connecting with like NASA and Home Depot and just all of these places where they're creating jobs and teaching autistics skills. So I'm just so honored to have such amazing panelists.
Really incredible. I'd love to hear, maybe you'd share with us, I know we can't necessarily call out all 31, but I'd love to hear who's on the self-advocate panel.
Yeah, there's only 3 of them, so we can definitely give them a shout out. Dennis Tran, who I've never met before, and I'm really excited to talk to him because he really talks a lot about culture. And I think that's a big discussion that needs to be upfront. Martin Slingstad, who is a very big advocate, especially in your area, Shannon. And he has done so much work. Mayors of so many cities have created autism days because of Martin. He does so much work in the community. I'm so proud of him. And also Andrew Waldman. I haven't met Andrew yet either. I'm really looking forward to meeting him and hearing his story. And I think that's one of the best things about the summits, about the growth of these summits, is that very rarely, some people have been on every summit, but at the same time, every summit has had new people. And I think that there is something to be said about always including new faces and new voices, because it's great that we have, these wonderful pioneers who have kind of brought us and stood on this foundation. But there are so many new voices and new faces and people that we need to learn from and bring to the spotlight. So that's what these summits are all about.
Well, they're absolutely amazing. And as you said, it's for free. If they want to register, they should go to your website. Can you say the website again so that everybody gets it in their head?
sjchilds.org.
sjchilds.org. Go and register, because that's going to get you a bunch of information. If you're already like, wow, this is amazing, and maybe you can't even be there on Sunday, but you'd like to keep finding out more information about it. First of all, it'll connect you to the after, that I'm sure you're going to get some information afterward. So go and register. But I think, what a great day. It's part of a 3-day weekend, so you can take a day and participate. But I really love that it's going to be on Facebook. And so for those of us who can't be there on Sunday, we can check it out later on.
Yep.
Absolutely amazing. So I guess if you're just scrolling through on Facebook, you can catch it even without registering.
Yeah, isn't that nice? And then people I guess that's the people I'm talking about, people that won't be able to see this and have a heads up that it's happening. They'll still have a chance to go back and to see others, to keep watching and learn from others. And I always invite people to reach out if they need anything, any resources. I love connecting people. My husband has me in a new habit where I just hand my business card to everyone I see and kind of everyone and just say, just call me if you need me. I'll help connect you or find you a resource if you need it, autism or not. It doesn't have to be autism related, but I love it. It's such a great habit. And it's really, people are really excited about it.
Well, I can't even say how inspirational I find you, Sarah. You're just a light on this planet. You are moving and shaking and making things happen and bringing people together. And my goodness, I'm so thrilled and excited and humbled that I got to be there at the beginning. But, you just have so far surpassed even the things that you were saying to me in the first conversation that you were wanting to do. I'm so proud of you.
And
I can't
so much.
And I can't wait to see what else you do. But no, I don't know how I get counted as a mentor, because you're mentoring the rest of us, Sarah. You are doing more than we even thought about. So bless you, and keep up the good fight and keep doing what you're doing, because you're shedding information in places where it needs to be. I just really respect and admire that.
Thank you. I think we really need to take advantage of this era where autism is in the minds of more people than ever before in existence. And we need to make sure that they're using and having the right perspective and getting the support if they don't understand, and they're getting the right information. And so that's what I'm hoping to do. And just really,
amen.
like you are doing, bringing on the best people to get the best information to this community, that has just been so life-bringing to me. So yeah, I just want to give back.
Well, amen to that. And speaking of that, I got to go to my other guests, but I hope you have a great showing, and that lots of people get the information that you're sending out to them. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us, Sarah.
Love you guys. Thank you so much.
All right, take care. Give hugs to your whole family.
Will do.
All right, bye-bye. We just got a jam-packed show here today. Really, what an inspirational person. Hi, Helen. We're so thrilled that you're joining us. I hope you got to see Sarah. Right now, we're going to be, in just a second here, we're going to be welcoming one of our oldest and dearest friends here at the show, an amazing young woman who has been moving and shaking. I don't even want to say how many years I think she's been working in the field of autism, but she's worked all over the globe, helping individuals, whether they're children, teens, or adults on the spectrum, to be able to find their way to communicate. She's so talented in so many different pockets, and she brings so much joy to the work that she does. She's got a new venture that we're going to be talking about for the first time, where she's really putting her heart and soul into everything to be able to help individuals who want her kind of help. And I know that there are some of you that are out there that are listening that you're like, okay, this is the person I need. The person I'm talking about is the amazing Soo Cho. You've seen her over the years. There was a while back, many years ago, because she's an amazing yoga expert. And she started doing yoga with some of her kids and found that for some of them, it was just an amazing thing. So we had her come into the studio. We actually filmed her with my son, teaching him yoga movements, and we called it Soo Choga. It was really amazing. So anyway, but really, the core of her talent is showing up and meeting people where they are and helping them to find their best way to communicate. What a beautiful thing. Could there be something more beautiful on the planet? Anyway, let's get her in here to talk about her new venture. There she is, the amazing and beautiful and talented Soo Cho. My family loves you so much. I hope you know that. We just, and I have missed you because Sue's been busy working on this new venture. Tell them what it is.
Hi, Shannon. Great to be with you.
Likewise.
So I've been working on a new project for the last, since the beginning of the year. And it's connecting learners with communication. And so basically, anytime I encounter an individual, whether it's a child or an adult, my task is to see what's the best way for them to connect with the world. Like, how can we get our communicators in a system, whether it's using their voice, maybe using text, a speech-generated device, communication pages, maybe a combination of those things. What's the best method for them to connect with others and be able to express themselves in a way that's functional? So that's what I've been focusing my time on since January, I believe. Yes. And I've been working with various families, ABA groups, speech therapists, all sorts of individuals with children and adults of many different ages and different abilities.
Yeah, you've taken it to the streets, and it's, it's so important. Sometimes somebody said, and I have had the pleasure of knowing and working alongside you and seeing your work for, my gosh, over a decade, maybe 15, 16 years, some rude amount. And I've seen the magic that you work with my kid and so many other kids. You have an energy about you, but you also are an expert in this. But there is something extra. You have a talent a stillness. I don't know how to describe it. I'm sure that you probably have a name for it because I know it goes hand in hand with your centeredness for your yoga, but it's amazing. It's brilliant to watch, and it's centered. Maybe that's the word that I want. You bring this centeredness and a stillness so that you can receive what's coming, which helps you to be able to communicate with people and find the mode of communication. I don't know. It's brilliant. Somebody needs to make a movie about it. But I've been able to see it for many, many years. And I think I've just gotten complacent about it and used to it. And I don't know whether I thought that other people were capable of this too, or other people were doing it. But I've come to realize, and you posted something the other day that I really resonated with me about the fact that people need to not just teach the communication method that they're familiar with. They need to consider what the individual needs. It's so frustrating to me that we still need to be explaining this, but it's happening. People are being taught communication. Let's just take school, for instance. I sometimes want to light my hair on fire because at schools, I'll talk to a parent and I'll say, how's your child doing at school? Well, we finally got a communication device at school. What'd you get? And they're like, we got a lamp device. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Because, I don't know that that's what that kiddo needs, and it's not going to work any place outside school because nobody's using that device outside schools. It makes me want to light my hair on fire. What are you seeing, Sue, that made you post that?
So just like what you said, what I often hear is I'll ask a caregiver or a clinician, okay, so your child has a device or a communication system. Why was that one chosen for them? And more times than not, what I'll hear is, that's what they always use, or that's what their school system uses, or that's what my therapist preferred. And when I see that a child is not connecting with the system and isn't or is struggling to get their basic wants and needs met through the system or connect with people, my first thing is, what have we done to look at the needs of the individual? And like you said, meet them where they're at. So like you brought up the lamp example, that's one that's come up with a number of cases that I've seen. And it's called language acquisition through motor planning. That's what LAMP stands for. And the problem that I've had with the number of learners that have had that particular system has been that, one, button size is very small for them. And maybe their motor skills, they have difficulty with motor skills. So pointing is difficult for them, isolating their finger. Some of these pages have like 60 buttons on them. And then you're asking a learner who has difficulty with finger isolation to touch the button, or even then maybe having the motor control to isolate and touch a specific button when there's maybe, again, 60 other buttons on the page. So I did see this one child at the beginning of the summer, and he'd had this system, I believe, for 2 years, to be clear. And the challenge for this poor guy was that he had a hard time looking at all the pictures and figuring out which picture he needed, and then also had a hard time using his finger to isolate the button that he needed to push. And so the therapists, the BTs on his case, along with the BCB, had been working with the school that had gotten him this device, and the child was unable to make any requests on his own in 2 years. So the therapist had to guide his finger, or they'd have to turn it to the correct page. And he was very, very frustrated.
Yeah.
It was very clear. He was not able to tell anybody what he wanted on his own. And so we ended up switching the system completely. We ended up getting him a tactile system. So one where he can actually physically grab a picture or physically grab an object. And within less than a month, he was able to start asking for things by himself.
Yeah.
No one was having to guide his finger or guide his hand or turn him to the right page. Like, they could have these pictures out, photographs, for example, that he could physically grab because the buttons were too small. And he was able to make independent requests in a month.
And
but
I'm just going to guess. I'm sorry, you continue. What were you saying?
I was saying, but the team was stuck. They're like, we should just try harder, or, just needs another repetition of it. And I said, you've been doing this for 2 years and he's still not able to do it by himself. We need to look at something else.
And I can only guess that this teen, the frustration that they were feeling was showing up in different ways. Mm-hmm. Like, not just in that moment. And
Absolutely. Lots of, he was engaging in self-interest behavior. So he was hitting himself. He was hitting other people. He was hitting, banging his environment. The team that was working with him had to use blocking pads to prevent him from hitting himself. He's just incredibly frustrated.
And once he could request things, did that change?
Yes, 100%. 100%. Mm-hmm.
I want to evoke, there's a wonderful viewer that we have. He's so busy now, he doesn't get to view very much, but the amazing Mike Hipple, who years and years ago started watching this show, and then he would write to me. And Mike's story is different. He's dealing with CP, but to the point where he was unable to speak on his own. And he was a teenager when he got his first communication device that did work for him. And the things that he has written to me since, and he was very point blank with me and said, this is a civil rights issue. Mm-hmm. Beyond everything else, this is a civil rights issue. And he said, I just want parents to know that until I had the ability to communicate, you said stuck, he said trapped. I was trapped and not able to tell people what I was thinking and feeling and wanting. Please tell these parents that, their child needs help. But I think sometimes it's hard for a parent. We don't know. And the expert that we ask says, let's try this. Let's give Here, we're going to give you a lamp, and you feel like you just have won the lottery. You didn't have to pay for it. Somebody gave you something, and then your dreams are dashed when your child doesn't pick it up. And then it feels like, well, maybe my child can never communicate. But what I love about what you're doing, and you're taking it to the streets now, is saying, no, let's try something different. Let's see what actually works for this individual. We just had Sarah on, and Sarah said, if you compare my autism to my son's autism, vastly different. Why do we think that one set of technology will work? And I think that some of it is just a lack of, I want to say, yeah, I don't want to, because there's amazing people that are out there working, but there's a lack of knowledge. What I hear from an SLP is, well, this is the system I know, so that's what I can teach. But you're here to educate anybody. But let's talk a little bit about how, if a family is hearing this and going, oh gosh, I think we need her, what does that look like? Because I know that the name of the company is Committed Actions Consulting. So what does it look like if somebody calls you up and says, hey, we need you?
So if someone calls me up, and they could reach me through my website, which is committedactions.com, I would schedule a meeting with them to start to figure out what needs they have. I work with caregivers, I work with professionals. And so depending on what their needs are, I see some children and work with their caregivers to help support their caregivers on developing a plan for doing it at home, so that the parents can practice using the device with their child and setting up sessions so that I can see them in their home environment and get to know their child, to figure out what their child is interested in communicating. So what are the current things that their child is doing in order to communicate with them? And if it's something that we are trying to change, so for example, maybe if it's hitting or grabbing or running away, then we work on teaching a replacement strategy for those behaviors that we're trying to change. So instead of running away, that they could teach their child to ask for where they want to go using the communication system that we determine is appropriate for their child. So in some cases, I may be working with something that's already existing because their speech therapist or their BCBA or their school has provided them with a system, and we determine that that's okay to work with. However, the teaching method needs to be addressed to support the caregivers in using it. And in other cases, I'm evaluating a system that currently exists that may not be appropriate for their child, and giving suggestions on other methods that could be used to support their child so their child will be more successful. So perhaps, like, let's say if they have a speech generated device like LAMP or Touch Chat or Proloquo, and we see that maybe the setup is a little too confusing for the child. Maybe there are too many words there for the child to filter through. We may work on, okay, can we modify the system that's currently there? Or do we want to try another method? Maybe we should switch to text for a short period of time, for example, and at least get something that's easier for the child to do so that they're more successful in communicating. And then as they build that skill, then increase the skill to maybe going to a speech generated device then. So maybe going back to the Proloquo or Touch Chat or LAMP. So again, that really depends on where the child is at. I do feel like oftentimes what happens though is this. People hear about the systems and they're like, great, I'm going to purchase the system. And then they don't necessarily think about the steps that are needed to actually teach the child to use the system. The child often is not just going to get a computer device or, again, one of these speech generated devices and just be able to use it out of the box. The most success that I've had in teaching children how to use this is to customize the language to the child. And so then it's easier for the child to be successful and much more rapid. When you're dealing with a lot of these pages that come in the systems, so like, let's say, for example, you get Proloquo. And when you set Proloquo up for the first time, it asks you, do you want to use one of our pages that we already have? Or do you want to create a new page for your child? I'd say more times than not, what I see is that people will use a page that's already made or a system that's already made because it takes less time. However, my experience has been like 90% of the time, if not more, a customized page for the child is far better to use because the language that's in there is unique to the child.
Yeah.
What the child is interested in. However, it does take time to set that up. So I think that makes it more difficult. And so really navigating all these different phases. Sometimes I'm also working with BCBAs as well, or speech language pathologists that will come to me and say, I have a child, I've been struggling with their communication needs. I'm not sure where to go, or I don't know what to do next. And I will work with them too to see perhaps maybe they need a speech generated device and they haven't had one in the past. So like if you have a child that's been imitating vocal speech, let's say, and their vocal speech is clear, however, again, no independence. Anything the child wants to say needs to be done through someone telling them what to say. So there's very little independence there. Or perhaps the child is difficult to understand or only intelligible by a small group of people. That would be an example of where I'd say, okay, this is where you're at. And then would a speech generated device be better? AAC, which is also it's known as, or would PECS be a better method for your child? Again, to get them some independent communication. Think that sometimes communication is confused when the child needs assistance all the time in being told what to say, or finding the right button. The child's having difficulty finding the right button if they have a speech generated device, or they're unable to use the systems to independently communicate. I spoke to Mike a number of months ago based on your recommendation, Shannon, and he was such a wonderful person to speak to because of the perspective that he brought in that independence is such an important thing for every individual with communication. And when we're constantly having to assist and the child or communicator isn't able to do it by themselves, like it's very difficult for them to connect authentically, organically, again, on their own and being independent. So there are lots of different ways that I am working with families and professionals. Again, it's individualized though. And yes. It can be from a one-time session all the way to sessions weekly. It really is based on the needs of the learner. And I try to work with everyone to make sure that we can get their child independently communicating when we're done, by the time we're done.
Which is amazing. I have so many things I want to go back and do follow-up questions about what you said, but the one that's nagging me the most is one of the things that you and I talked about probably a couple of months ago is that, let's say best case scenario, that the child has gotten a device that actually ends up being the right device for them, which already we've won the lottery, right? But that somebody fabulous set it up in the beginning so that it is customized to the child. Wonderful. We've won the lottery twice here. But that often what happens is the learning rate of the child, because we've got the right thing and it is customized to them, the learning rate of the child is going up and they're adding more and more things, but no one is available to very quickly update this system to keep up with the learning rate of the child. So we actually are slowing the child down because, somebody can't update it on a weekly or even a monthly basis based on what the child is learning and what's coming next. And that never occurred to me before. And when I think about how once kids get the method of how they're going to communicate, it's so exciting. It's so exciting to watch kids flourish. And it breaks my heart to think that sometimes we're holding them back because we're simply not updating the system. But not everybody knows how to. I think that oftentimes it's not identified who is the person who's doing it. And that person might be beleaguered with so many other things that they have to do that are requirements from insurance companies. Don't get me started on that. Right? But there isn't time. And I know that's one of the things that you were talking about that you're also very capable of doing is updating those systems. Is that something that you're still looking at doing, Sue?
that is something I'm still doing. Some of the teams that I work with, we have a regular update on their system. So I'll meet with them to help support them on building their communicators' vocabulary. And I also feel that it's important that the devices, the picture systems, all these things are looked at as an imperative tool that we're continuously updating, just like people update their programs, like their therapy programs, that the communication system is integral in growing and developing a learner's or communicator's skills. And again, building their independence, their autonomy. And so I often suggest that the caregivers learn to at least do the basic programming on their devices. Yeah. And also whoever's managing the device does it as well. It should be a collaborative thing. I feel that when it's just one person doing it, that you're there's bottlenecks. I guess that's a way to put it. That, what if I need 5 new words in my device and I'm not seeing my therapist who can update it for another week or 2? I think it's important that at least the BCBA on a case, speech language pathologist, and caregiver all are able to make updates on the system and are communicating those updates so that the child has their words.
Exactly. All I can think is that when Jem started, because, he had been speaking, he lost all of his language. Then when he started speaking again, he started adding literally 5 words a day, and it was exciting. And when I think about if in that mode, I would have had to have said to him, slow down, because we're not updating the system every day for the 5 words. That makes me physically ill to even think about. So, but you now just brought up something else about how if the child is communicating through the device, then that is their voice. And I find myself, I love all the parents, but I find myself frustrated sometimes having to ask a parent, they'll tell me something that happened and I'll say, where was the device? In the backpack. Why is it in the backpack? Well, because we were in the car, or it was raining, or whatever the reason is. And I find my guts shake. How do we help convince everyone? I've seen this happen at school too, where the teacher says it's time to put away the device because we're going to go do X, Y, or Z. And I just don't understand, what are the words that we say to these people so that they understand you cannot do that?
It is, it should, in my mind, be seen as a part of the child.
Yeah.
Right. So anywhere they go, that you teach the individual that the device belongs to them and they are responsible for carrying it, for example.
Yeah.
Right. So even itty bitty kids, 2-year-old, 3-year-olds, I tell the caregivers and the clinicians, be sure you teach the child to carry their device. And also, when the child starts using it to connect to people and they see the good things that come from being able to be understood, they'll also like their device.
Yeah.
I think it's also important in the very beginning, especially, that whoever's using the device sees it as a positive thing, not as a negative thing.
Yeah.
My goal is always to get the child or communicator to be as independent as possible. And for some individuals, that will lead to vocal speech. However, the other thing that I often see too there is that we often forget the future of where we want the kids to be, or the learners to be, communicators to be. And because of that, they don't think about in the future when I'm not with my child, when my child's at the mall, or my child's with friends, that if the people that are familiar with vocal, for example, or the little gestures that the person does, isn't there to communicate the needs of that individual, then they're lost, they're stuck. Their independence and their autonomy is gone. How can they connect? So it's really important that they're always carrying it with them. They
Absolutely.
Always have it. And if you're having a difficult time with that, with your communicator, something that you, again, need to teach, need to reinforce and practice so that they become familiar and understand that it's theirs. right? So think about, as an adult, most people, their phones, anywhere you go, you take your phone with you.
Yeah.
You can teach your communicator to do that too. It's really important. But I think we go on and on too about the fact that people often remove the communication system too early in the learner's abilities. And then we go from learning really quickly, like you said, to a flat line in learning, because that what they need to help them learn faster or communicate faster is also gone.
Yeah. I can't help but think, there was a dad that I was talking to the other day, and he said, I just want to know what I need to do. I just don't know anymore. And he said, I feel like we've tried a lot of things, and I just want to know who's the person that I have to talk to. I brought up your name. So I hope that works out. Excuse me, now I'm going to cough. But I want to talk a little bit about the passion piece, because you're meeting them where they are. And you bring a lot of your passions, whether it's yoga, excuse me, or cooking. Talk a little bit about that, about how you meet their passion with your passion.
Well, I would say that I often try to find ways, by being curious with whomever I'm with, to see what they're curious about. So what are they interested in? And often you'd be surprised at the connections that you'll find just from being curious with what the other individual is interested in. That often brings a connection from my side too. So like, I had a little boy that I saw yesterday, and he had all different kinds of cookies in his lunchbox. And I was talking about how I was going to be baking cookies. And from that, we had this interesting connection and back and forth. And most of my work is also done over the web. So I'm on camera with these children. I noticed another child, I'm like, oh goodness, he seems to really like flipping around. I said, hey, what if we tried some yoga moves with him? And so I really try to integrate and be curious about what the other people are curious about. And often it will bring my interests in as well as a way to connect. So.
And I think that's how we should all be approaching everything, that whenever we're, if you really stop and think about it, whenever we're meeting anybody, that there's an exchange of information that's about what we're passionate about and what they're passionate about. Excuse me. I don't know why people tend to think that a person on the spectrum wouldn't be interested in something and wouldn't want to share it. I think that's a terrible misconception. I want you to talk a little bit about, excuse me, this always happens in the studio at a certain point. I don't know what's going on. But I want you to talk about how important it is for families to be willing to change something. Because I know there's a lot of frustrated people out there. Like you were saying, the little boy that was doing something for 2 years. I think we get comfortable. And so, maybe talk about some of the other things that you've seen and why it's important for parents to try something different. I'm going to cough. Mm-hmm. You go.
Okay. So I would say that in all the years that I've been doing work with individuals on the spectrum, and I believe I'm at 29 years now, is what I counted at. In those years, the thing that I've held very important is that I always need to look at each individual and determine what is the best way for them to learn and thrive and grow. And in looking at that, I know that everybody learns at a different rate. Everybody learns differently. And yet, when we find the way that it's easiest for someone to learn, to take that as a stepping stone to the next step and the next step and the next step. And even though we may have a goal of, like, let's say, for example, speaking, like if we have a goal with a child that they will be speaking, getting there may not look like what we think or hope it's going to look like. I think it's important, again, that we look at the individual and say, how can we make this happen faster? And frequently, I see that people seem to be afraid to implement augmentative communication or visual supports and those types of things, because I feel what I hear, or I often hear, is that people are worried that the child will never speak. People will worry that this will slow down their ability to talk. Talking, I get, is very important. At the same time, if we're looking at, it's taken 6 months for a child to learn one word in speaking. And in that time, the child could have been able to communicate 10, 15, 20 words using a different method. I think it's important to look and say, what's more important here and who's it for? Because, as we said, anyone, I know for myself, if I'm having difficulty conveying what I'm trying to communicate, that I get frustrated, because it's important that I'm getting my point across to somebody. So if it's that way for myself, I look at our children that I work with in many cases and think, my goodness, I can see how frustrated they are. I see that they're trying to communicate. However, the way that they're doing it isn't in a way that others understand them. And what can we find which will be the faster way for them to start that connection? Yeah. And that always gets the buy-in from the communicator too, right? Or the child. But then it's like, oh, this got me what I needed. They understand me. Then I can take the next step. And as you go along, it's also important that it's continuously evaluated and tweaked to make sure that we're always doing what's best for the individual communicator, the child.
And the best way to do that, I think, is to utilize you. Okay, I want to take a second to talk about, because we were going to do, the jargon of the day was going to be functional communication. Now, this is a phrase that I have heard since my son was diagnosed 20 years ago. Functional communication, which the jargon of the day would have said something along the lines of, this is, a method of communicating that gets your needs met, basically, right? Mm-hmm. But I see that people have taken this term and, I don't know, it's gotten a little fuzzy for some people. And the term that I keep hearing all the time, but when I look up the definition of it, I'm not seeing what they're talking about, is people talk about gestalt. Oh, my child's a gestalt learner. If I say something about functional communication, they go, oh, no, my child's a gestalt learner. And I'm a little bit like at sea. Tell me what you think is going on there.
So I think that what has happened over the years is that, like, when I started doing ABA in the 90s, everything was very structured. It was very much like there was a distinct instruction, there's different response or a specific response and a consequence. And there was also like almost guidelines as to how you do those lessons. When I first started, we did much of it at the table. So it was the discrete child training. So the therapist would give an instruction, the child would give an answer, and then you would give a consequence. And what I believe has shifted over the years is that what we've learned is that human beings learn better when it's applicable to them and it's interesting to them, right? So it's far more important for us to be teaching things that are useful in everyday life. So, for example, being able to ask for something in a way that others will understand them when the need arises for them to ask for something, like maybe ask to open the door or ask for help. I believe that what's happened is I've been hearing the term more and more, GLP, gestalt learning processors. What I know about individuals that are fitting this particular profile is, in a lot of ways, it's still what we should be doing anyway, which is what's meaningful, what's appropriate, what's relatable, what's motivating to the learner. And then individuals just tend to learn faster because of that. I'd say that in some ways, the good thing about it is that it's reminding people to make things more like everyday life, make it in context, have it make sense. So for example, rather than just making me talk about, let's say if I have a ball if I'm just holding up a ball and just talking about the ball, but there's no reason for me to talk about the ball, that's probably not a good way to connect with someone and start talking about it. The better way to do that would be, for example, as the child is interested in playing with the ball, that I talk about the ball, that I ask them to say ball, perhaps, because it's the appropriate time to ask for it. Like maybe I have the ball and they want the ball, and then they say ball, and then I throw them the ball. And then I say back to them, oh, you caught the ball. So I would say that it's really hopefully bringing people to remember that teaching in context, in reality, as it would be, functional, as you would use it in the real world, and have it be of interest to the learner. That's what is really bringing things to.
Okay, which is what I think that functional communication has to be anyway, because how could it be functional if it's not those? But so what I'm hearing is that the current people saying Gestalt is what I think functional is. So I figured it out in my head now. But it's confusing. It's confusing because, well, anyway. But how important it is that it fit into the context of the child's life. If we're ever teaching something that isn't something, I always laugh about the very first day that Jem was born. One of my very best friends came up to the hospital day one, and she held him and she looked at him and introduced herself, and she said, "Say oscillating sprinkler." And we laughed hysterically because what newborn on day one, right? But that's the kind of person she is. It was hysterical, right? It wasn't meant to be real. But, sometimes I feel like people are doing that you're trying to teach a 4-year-old a skill that you would never expect a 12-year-old to have. Or say something that you would not expect an 8-year-old to say. That is of no use to the child. People get, especially the polite stuff, drives me crazy. Parents are like, well, listen, please and thank you are lovely and important. But first the child needs to be able to say juice if that's what they want. Then you can teach them please and thank you. But the please and thank you is more for you than it is for the child when the child is 2 and nonverbal. I don't know, I get fatoutsed.
It's the same thing, though, with teaching, like you said, teaching any language, whether it's for an individual that speaks or uses a speech-generated device. Think about what are they trying to tell you, not what do you want them to tell you. What are they trying to tell you? That's where you should start from.
And I think at the heart, that's every single parent's mecca. We want to know what our kids are thinking. I think sometimes we get off track or people lead us off track, but we want to know what they want. We want to know what they're thinking. We want them to be able to communicate their wants and needs to us. So we just need to remember to make that paramount and work with professionals that are going to help us to get on that path, which is you. So we've only got a couple of seconds here left. Let's talk about how people connect with you. Best way through the website?
Best way through the website or email. So my website is www.committedactions.com. And my email is Soo, S-O-O, @committedactions.com.
Okay. SOO@committedactions.com. I hope a bunch of people reach out to you because you are such, like I said, there's just an energy about you and working with you. I've had the experience over decades now of calling you up and going, here's the issue. And you're always, you listen and you're measured and you're kind and you're considerate. And you always have good things. I've seen amazing things come to pass from families who have had the pleasure of working with you. So I love this path you're on. I love it for you, and I love it for all of us. It's a wonderful thing. And I just respect and admire you. You asked me a while ago to write a blurb for your website, and I haven't forgotten. I've been beleaguered, but I need to get that because I just adore the ground you walk on, and I think that you are the expert in this. You are the person that can get families to the good things. all the things that they've been wishing for. So I just need to write that in a blurb for you to put on your website. But know that I personally endorse Sue and her work. I've sat in the front row to see the difference that it makes. And she is the person that if you were struggling with any of this, that I would refer you to. So there. But I need to put that in a blurb for you for the website. I will get it done, I promise. And I just think that you're an amazing person, and I thank you for being on the planet and sharing what you know and your heart with all of our kids and all of our families, and now with these professionals that you're going to help have them grow. And I hear you're making sourdough bread.
I am. Lots of it. It's getting colder outside, so I am baking.
Did it start in the pandemic? Were you one of those people that it started in the pandemic, or was it post or pre? Or
it was pre-pandemic.
Pre-pandemic, you were always about the sourdough bread. It's so funny to me that that's a thing now. My great grandmother used to live with us when I was a child, and she made sourdough bread, and it was, she made it naturally. It was the smelliest stuff on the face of the planet. And I always thought that our family was, the horrible family on the block, that the kitchen smelled like a locker room because she was making her sourdough bread. And then all of a sudden, everybody's making it. I wish you the best, my friend, and please stay in contact, and please come back and share with us things that you've got going on because we just respect and admire you. Deal?
Deal.
And come visit us sometime. I want everybody to know we have the All Ghouls Gala coming up. And if anybody's going to be in LA, if you come to LA, come to the All Ghouls Gala, Sue. We'd love to have you.
Oh, I'll look it up.
Very fun.
I will.
All right. I think tickets went on sale yesterday for All Ghouls Gala. So I promised you guys I would let you know when the tickets are available. So check that out. And we'll make sure that we'll be talking about it for the whole next month. Leading up to it. All right, we got to go, but thank you so much for all that you're doing. Please check her out, you guys. We're going to be back next week. We've got some amazing shows coming up for you. You're not going to want to miss them. I hope everybody has a good and safe Labor Day weekend. We'll be back soon. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.